We had a couple of long-awaited trips canceled this year due to COVID, so we looked for a destination that was on our list and was safe to visit. Greece made the top of the list, especially some of the less traveled islands in the Aegean Sea. But first, we have to get to Athens. It's a long overnight flight from Seattle, and we stopped to change planes in Amsterdam. The trip across Europe to Athens is relatively short, or we're just tired. We check into the Hotel Grand Britannia on Constitution Square next to the Greek Parliament building. Built in 1874, it was Athens' finest hotel for more than 50 years. During World War II, it was the headquarters of the Third Reich's occupation of Greece. We're definitely tired. We enjoy the champagne and baklava while we wait for room service. After a light dinner, we fall into bed. The adventure begins tomorrow. At breakfast, we're greeted with a stunning view of the Acropolis from the 8th floor restaurant. We walk through the Makrijani neighborhood at the foot of the Acropolis. We pass Hadrian's Gate, built to honor Roman Emperor Hadrian in 132 AD. We'll be visiting the Acropolis Museum after we explore the site itself. Along the way, we pass the most expensive real estate in Athens on Dionisio Eripapagaitou. Along the way, we get glimpses of the ruins at the base of the rocky outcropping. While the Acropolis is dominated by the Parthenon, it also contains other temples, sanctuaries, and theaters. As we ascend the slopes of the Acropolis, we get our first clear view of a temple, the Temple of Athena Nike, built around 420 BC. As we climb higher, we get a good view of the Odeon of Herodotus Atticus, completed in 161 AD. It's been restored and is the main venue for the Athens Festival, hosting a wide variety of Greek and international performers. These steps leading to the Propylaea, the monumental gateway to the Acropolis, are now clogged with tourists. Construction of the Propylaea began in 437 BC, but was halted in 431 by the outbreak of the Peloponnesian War. The building was never completed, as evidenced by these lifting bosses, which are trimmed off a finished wall. From the top, we get a better view of the Temple of Athena Nike. It's the earliest fully Ionic temple on the Acropolis. The Erechtheion is thought to have been dedicated to the goddess Athena, but Poseidon may also have been worshipped here. It's unlike other Ionic temples because of its asymmetry. A famous feature of the Erechtheion is the maiden porch, whose purpose is still being debated. Below the Acropolis, the modern city of Athens stretches out to the distant hills. We have arrived at the Parthenon, along with a few hundred other visitors. Our guide assures us that this is just a small crowd. The Parthenon is the most important surviving building of classical Greece. Its decorative sculptures are considered the high point of Greek art. The Parthenon was completed in 438 BC. In the 6th century, it was converted to a Christian church. Under the Ottomans, it became a mosque in the early 1460s. In 1687, an Ottoman ammunition dump inside the Parthenon was struck by a Venetian bombardment, and the building was severely damaged. Since 1975, several large-scale restoration projects have been undertaken to ensure the structural stability of the building. Today, the top of the Acropolis looks like a giant jigsaw puzzle. There seem to be column capitals and marble blocks in piles everywhere. Our guide assures us that one of the archaeological projects was to catalog all the puzzle pieces in hopes of finding their original place and purpose. He points out our next stop, the Acropolis Museum. The top floor is oriented exactly as the Parthenon is. On the way down, we get a view of the Theater of Dionysus. The lower section was built in the mid to late 6th century BC and was extended in the 4th century to a capacity of up to 17,000 people. Below we see the ancient agora, the marketplace, with the modern city stretched out beyond. Sherry and our guide Kiki pose in front of the Odeon of Herodotus Atticus. We queue up at the Acropolis Museum to get our vaccination cards checked. The museum has an amazing collection, curated from the objects excavated on the Acropolis. There are many of these dedication plaques. This one shows a set of surgical instruments, maybe commemorating a successful procedure. The sculptures of the Acropolis are the finest in the ancient Greek world. These are the original maidens from the Maiden Porch. Only a small number of the sculptures that decorated the Parthenon remain in place. Most of the surviving sculptures are in European museums and here in the Acropolis Museum. These high-relief sculptures were located above the columns on the Parthenon. White panels are casts of the originals held by other museums. This floral acrotarian crowned the ridge of the Pantheon. We walk back to our hotel through Constitution Square. We have time to unload the cameras and get them ready for tomorrow, and relax. During dinner, we watch the lights come on the Parthenon. After breakfast, we meet Spiros Katsiopoulos, a professional photographer who will be guiding us to some of the photogenic areas of Athens. Our first stop is the Plaka neighborhood, north and east of the Acropolis, built on the top of the residential area of ancient Athens. Because of that, it's an interesting mix of new, old, and ancient. The new part are the many restaurants and small hotels in the neighborhood. There are many neoclassical buildings on the winding streets. This neighborhood, Anaphiotica, is unique in Athens because of its Cycladic architecture. People from the Aegean island of Anaphi settled here in 1836 when they were brought in to Athens to build a palace for King Otto. This is the Tower of the Winds in the old agora. It featured sundials, a water clock, and a wind vane. It's considered to be the first meteorological station. It's dueling cameras with our guide Spiros. He noticed early on that I like doors and windows. He encouraged us to branch out to balconies. Our next stop is the Royal Gardens, now the National Gardens. They were opened by Queen Amelia in 1840. It's a good place for photography lessons like this composition study. The turtles posed for us. Like Athens in general, there are fragments of ancient buildings all around to remind us that this place is very old. We stopped by the Olympic Stadium, built for the first modern Olympics in 1896. Next, we walked to the Presidential Palace to see the changing of the guard. The unusual kilt-like uniforms called fusinella are only worn now by the ceremonial Presidential Guard. The uniforms evolved from clothing worn by freedom fighters during the Greek War of Independence in 1821. Then it's back to the hotel to pack. We leave for the Cyclades in the morning. We enjoy a sumptuous dinner at the hotel. We watch the moonrise behind the Greek Parliament building, which was once King Otto's royal palace.